Hello, this is Dr. Jason B. Munsell, Professor of Communication Studies. Put Yoda in your pipe and smoke it. This is not a real pipe, I don't smoke. I just thought it would look cool. These are not my glasses, these are my dad's glasses. They're more like safety glasses, though that's hard to tell. Okay. Welcome. This is me. It's about 4:30 or so, Thursday evening, September 8th, 2016. I'm going to take you through the first chapter. This is the first online lecture. This is usually how I do it. It's never very polished. I don't have a studio or anything like that where I can do anything terribly professional. I've got my iPad, I've got my computer, I've got a PowerPoint that I also put up on KC for you. I got my delicious iced tea here. There is one thing that is missing. Usually for the past, I don't know how many years when I've been doing online lecture, and I usually do them from home, because the technology I have here in my house is better than the technology I have in my office. I usually had my dog help me out, but he is sort of with us right now. I picked up his ashes. So he's with us. He was such a good boy when I brought him home. He didn't bark at all. Until we meet again at the Rainbow Bridge. So he's here with us for the very first lecture, and maybe he'll bark. I don't know. Stranger things have happened. Hopefully you got my. I did enjoy our very first night together 2 nights ago, last Tuesday, or this past Tuesday, on the 6th, and I think it's going to be a wonderful class. It was really cool to meet all of you. You all, I know a lot of you already, but those I don't know. Y'all seem very, very cool. We're going to have a very great educational experience together. I have emailed you about the first thread. I put the first thread up about thinking in terms of politics being a communicative process. And so I haven't gone back and looked at that yet. I just put that up last night. But hopefully you see that. And again, you need to start tweeting. And so both the thread and the first tweet are going to be due by this coming Sunday. But please just let me know if you have trouble with the tweets, or if you have a problem, as in a disagreement with the whole process of doing something like that. Please just let me know, and we'll figure something out. And of course, if you don't want me to follow you, like to see everything that you do on Twitter, again, that's why in part I have that hashtag. I mean, ideally, I would like us to follow one another, but that doesn't necessarily have to happen so long as you use that hashtag. If people search that hashtag, they should be able to find everything that you post pertaining to the class. What I've done in the past is I have, if you allow people to follow you, put the Twitter accounts, the links to your page on KC so folks can quickly find you. And I'm plan on doing that unless you have individually a big problem with that. In any case, that's maybe one of you are emailing me right now. And I'll say we sort of ran out of time on Tuesday, but I'll finish the syllabus and things like that, and make sure everything is as clear as possible. And I do hope over the course of the weekend to get more stuff up for the first assignments, which mainly is the first paper, but I'll talk about that later. So chapter 1, and I'm just going to cover chapter 1. I'll probably over the course of the weekend send you something on chapter 2, but I didn't want to bombard you with stuff. And you'll also notice I have not been able to figure out what I do is I record these videos sort of in an impromptu fashion. Oh, by the way, did you all watch the forum last night? I didn't. But in any case, the presidential forum, Clinton and Trump. I read some news about it. Apparently, neither of them did very well. I upload these things to my YouTube page, but for some reason they only will allow like 15 minutes worth of stuff, and then I have to do like a second segment. So this will probably cut off in the middle, and then so just know, and then I put those links on Casey. So that's sort of how I do things. So we can pretend like we were face to face in the classroom, and I'm sort of yakking at you, going through stuff, but I'm not. I'm home with some books and stuff like that, and going through it this way. So you too can do the same thing at home and watch this glorious thing and be educated. And as well, I mean, the idea here is that you're also obviously reading the book, right? You read the book. I would actually read the book first, and then listen to my lecture and go back and forth and make sure that you sort of understand things. What I would not do if I were you is just solely depend on my online lectures to help you understand or go through the material in the book. Please read, because reading is fundamental. Okay, so entering the ongoing argument, chapter 1 and 2 are in part about entering the ongoing argument, but again, I'm not focusing on chapter 2 in this particular present online lecture. And I want you to get fired up. We talked about this, about entering that ongoing argument, about the cocktail party and everything like that on Tuesday. So we need to get fired up. And I do like the idea on page 2. The cocktail party stuff was on page 1. But Han, I just dropped it. Says oftentimes, people say, people they're stressed out about politics. They don't know enough about it, and so they don't want to talk about it. Until something happens that they actually care about. Until a famous football player is accused of murdering his wife. A president is caught in a sexual relationship. So folks pay attention when we have these crazy dramatic things, because news loves a melodrama. Politics is like a soap opera. I like soap. Makes things clean. But what we need to do is get fired up, right? And try to keep on top of things as much as we possibly can. We do not want to retreat into quietude. We want to be in the process. So basically what he says is, because the topics don't seem to affect their lives directly, a lot of people don't understand why other people are so passionate about them. I don't have kids in school. Why do I have to pay taxes for school? I don't care. Stupid. Knowledge and interest are prerequisites for entering conversations. That is true for the societal conversation as it is for the idle chatter at cocktail parties. So knowledge and interest. Get fired up. I know some of you are just in this class because you had to take this class, but if you ain't interested in politics, but politics is still interested in you. So you got to get fired up. This is us getting fired up. It's a fire pit in Minnesota at my brother-in-law's house. He's dead. We're making s'mores. We did have a fire though. And that's us getting fired up, eating s'mores. Okay, some important ideas here. Typo there. One of the things that, and this is what the first thread is about, because it's very important to me that you understand that this is a communication studies course. So we obviously look at politics as a process of communication. But what Han is arguing here is that we oftentimes think of politics as, think in terms of issues of power. Who has power, who doesn't have power, how power is wielded, etc., etc. And he wants to avoid the idea of just looking at who has power, because, again, he wants to look at politics as not a process of power, but a process of communication. Looking at it as a process of communication makes it a lot more complicated, and so we have a lot more sort of sophisticated approach to communication and this relationship to power. and politics. So he basically says he sees politics as a process that takes place through communication. Politics takes place through communication. You cannot have politics without communication. From identifying a problem in society, perhaps through conversations with those suffering from it, through proposing a solution, debating the need for a solution, why is this more pressing problem than a myriad of others, arguing the relative merits of this solution over other problems, explaining the resulting law to the citizens and to those in the government whose job it is to enforce it, and so on. At every step, communication is involved. And government really, and politicians should be politics, policy. They're in the job of creating public policy to try to solve public problems. And so what he says is that politics is the process of solving public problems. And how do you solve a public problem? You got to talk about it. Not just talk, but nonverbal too. It's all about communication. And so when you think about political communication, or you think about politics generally, if somebody asks you, what is politics? You say, it's a process of communication. It is a complex process of solving public or social problems. That's what Hahn would tell us. You can take that or leave it, but that's what Hahn would say. Now, given that, and there's also sort of a double sense here, right? You know, communication that resides within a political context, like somebody giving a political speech or a commercial, but also politics as a communicative process, because even when you're campaigning, I mean, you're still trying to get to the situation and you're still trying to solve public problems. So, but, okay. Politics, process of communication, process of solving public problems. Public problems are complicated things that must be solved through the process of communication, and thus political communication is all of that. So does he ever really find political communication? He does. They certainly are most, as with political communication, they do play a role. He's talking about power and stuff like that. Okay, and economics, and hopefully you get that. Now, what is public? Because that's very, very important. That is all up for grabs in lots of ways, and it's really interesting how folks tend to think that there's this private realm over here, there's this public realm over here. Government doesn't touch the private, but it's too complicated. And I do like the idea that he goes through the very idea of what a public problem is. What is public? What does public mean? What does private mean? Are the two realms absolutely separate? No. Should they be? I don't think how could they possibly be? I don't know how they could be. Everything that we think is private is also public. Is how I furnish my living room / library private? Maybe. The government can't tell me where to put my damn chair. But how do I order my IKEA chair? And what are the policies that govern? What about the taxes, the sales taxes on that chair? And what about the 5 hours it takes me to put the chair together, and how it hurt me? I broke my head trying to put together my IKEA chair and had to call 911 because I needed a wambulance. And then they took me to the emergency room, and it's so private and public sort of blur into one another. I mean, again, you know, we think that there's a difference, but you know, there is a difference, but it's more complicated than that. The main thing, the main thing I would argue here is that oftentimes, or I would say, is that in the realm of public communication or in the realm of political communication, oftentimes we argue what is private and what is public. And so what is private and public is up for grabs, and it's part of the larger process of politics and political communication. So there. That being said,